Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final regular season edition of FBC NFL Sunday. That's right, it's week 18. We are set to wrap up this 2021 NFL season with, hey, look, we got some meaningful games today, some playoff implications, some seeding implications, and certainly we could see some teams leapfrog one another because based on the results of yesterday, Kansas City is technically back in the number one spot, although all the Titans need to do to retake that spot is to win today. So it's going to be an interesting day. A lot of seeding still needs to be taken into account. And of course, maybe some end of the season individual awards still to be hammered out here by the end. So before we get into all that, good morning, Braden, Ricky. How are we doing today on this fine January Sunday?
Kind of glad the Chiefs played last night so I can watch it all today. So really excited for a lot more cleaner football. Let's put it that way.
I mean, it's kind of weird as Ian, as Patriots fans, we have to rely on the Jets to actually do stuff today. That never works out. But hey, sports gambling is legal in New York, so that's
true.
That is exciting for people in New York like myself today. And here's what I might try to experiment on this afternoon.
Yeah, I was going to say it's legal as of 9 a.m. yesterday, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So there you go. Congratulations. Have fun, folks out there in New York. I live down in Florida, so things are just kind of wild west down here. We have everything. So I've been able to experience that for some time. I've had a pretty good season with FanDuel. Not so much my fantasy league, although I am happy to report that I won the consolation game, meaning I did not finish as the worst team in the league this year, and that would have come with a lot of consequences with the group of people that I play with. So it was a devastating fantasy year for myself. I scored the second most points in a league that only had 8 teams, but I missed the playoffs. How does that? I just don't understand it. Even in the consolation round, I scored the most points out of any team that week. It was just one of those unfortunate things where I started 0-4, and it's a very atypical fantasy season for me, where I ultimately end as not winning anything and basically just questioning whether or not I ever play the sport again. But you know how it goes come September or August, September, when drafts are going around. You're like, yeah, you know what? Why not? This is going to be my year. Except for me, it's never my year. But hey, you know what? Fantasy football's over with for the most part. If you're playing daily fantasy, it's obviously a lot of fun, and I do enjoy it, and I will certainly be setting my lineup. So all you folks out there in New York, enjoy. Make some bets. I think Tom Brady plus 500 is still available for MVP, and I think that is a mighty fine bet if you got $100 that you're willing to turn into $500. That would be a terrible bet, actually. But so yeah, maybe go make a bet on that, Ricky, because if you put down $100, I think you might be $500 richer in a few weeks.
Definitely got a good shot at that, but you never know. We could have the stat pattern, Aaron Rodgers. Who knows how long he plays today and throws like 6,000 touchdowns.
I'm glad you brought it up because look. I think it's very clear that this MVP award means a lot to him. Like, he wants it. Like, this is, and I talk about it a lot on our morning show, FBC Radio Live, and my co-host as well. This season, these MVP awards, the Super Bowl, all that stuff in a vacuum means so much more to Aaron Rodgers. It does nothing in the ultimate at the who's the greatest quarterback of all time. No, if he goes out, wins an MVP, wins a Super Bowl, it does nothing for that conversation. However, it boosts his own personal legacy, not necessarily against Tom Brady. I don't think it has. I mean, again, the idea that we even compare the two in the grand scheme of things is actually silly, and I think just more of a product of, well, we're living in the moment, so that's what we're going to do. The reality of it is winning this award, winning this Super Bowl for Aaron Rodgers does a lot more for his legacy in a vacuum. And by that, I mean it potentially catapults him into, like, the way I look at it, and in terms of the greatest quarterbacks of all times, it's Tom Brady on an island by himself at the top. Then you got Joe Montana. Then you got guys like Peyton Manning, John Elway. Put in those guys that have been to multiple Super Bowls, won multiple Super Bowls, have gone. Obviously, Elway went to 5, Peyton went to 4, 2 of the most of all time. And then you got that tier with the Steve Youngs, the Dan Marinos. I'd put Aaron Rodgers in that group. Kind of fringe, borderline top 10, top 7, top 8, top 9, that type of group. And I think that's where Aaron Rodgers is right now. If he wins a Super Bowl, wins another MVP, all of a sudden maybe he jumps into a group above that, but below the Peyton Manning. So to me, his legacy has much more to benefit for him, not necessarily against anyone else, certainly not Brady, than it does anyone else. So of course he wants this. Of course he wants this. But I do find it ironic that those anti-Brady arguments have involved a lot of, oh, well, he stat pads. Well, actually, he doesn't. So he just does a lot of his stuff, and then we've seen him sit out long stretches of time. At the end of games that they have blown teams out. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm of the belief that he is the front runner right now. So I think he's playing with a bit of strength in terms of, well, go out, have a really good, have a pretty just standard game against the Carolina Panthers, and he's going to be walking home with his 4th MVP. He's 10 yards away from 5,000 yards. He has, he's already 40 touchdowns on the year. So maybe he throws 2 or 3 more, and you're talking 42, 43. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I like that the Packers and the Lions are on at 1. So we get to know what the performance is going to be like from Aaron Rodgers. But it's going to be interesting to see. And again, it makes Week 18 far more intriguing, where it's like there's going to be teams. We saw the Eagles last night. Jalen Hurts didn't play. They kind of rested a lot of players. You're going to see other teams choose to sit players out. But like I said, the Rams, the Buccaneers, they're both still vying for that number 2 seed in the NFC. The Cardinals are still in the mix. Obviously, the Saints are still trying to make it into the playoffs. So I guess I'll throw it to you guys. What is the one thing that you're looking forward to the most today? I mean, obviously, Braden, you've already watched the Chiefs play, so you're just kicking back, relaxing, and just watching this finale. But what are you guys looking forward to the most? Is it the MVP race? Is it some of these playoff races? Or is it just getting this season the hell over where they're getting to the playoffs?
I guess the top game for me probably is San Francisco and the LA Rams, just because I think there's so much riding on the line for these two teams. Of course, the Rams have been all in. I mean, they even tweeted out their own GIF about it after the Odell and Von Miller trade. So with the 49ers, though, it's obviously a big week for what their future is going to kind of hold, before they maybe go into the Trey Lance era for full bore, or if Jimmy G has another chance to kind of stake his claim. So that's probably the top game for me. And especially if, of course, the Niners lose, Saints win, Niners go from 6 seed to out. So a lot riding on the game, not just for the playoffs, but I think for both the futures of these teams long term.
And if the Niners do lose, then the Saints with a win over Atlanta would get in. And to me, guys, if the Saints get in, it's hard to not put Sean Payton in that Coach of the Year category when you consider like their offense is hard to watch. It makes people cringe, and they've had so many people injured or out with COVID that to me it would be impressive if they did get in. For me, it's tonight in the AFC, Chargers at the Raiders. Besides the tie scenario, which I still find very fascinating and how they'd actually play it, I don't think they would kneel it, but overtime, you get there. Who can blame them if they just say for 10 minutes, let's not be as aggressive with the play calling? But to me, this is about two teams that I don't think anybody has a feel on this year. The Chargers, they can beat a great team and they can lose to the Texans. Herbert can play great and then struggle at Denver. Vegas can beat Dallas. They can beat Indy. They can beat all these good teams. And then they can barely beat Cleveland, struggle with Denver. I think they'll have the emotional lift, but it's hard to figure out which one of these two teams will show up in a big game. Does Darren Waller, if he does play, does he have anything in the tank? That one I think is very hard to figure out. You tend to lean Chargers, but both these teams are very tough to trust.
I do want to. I'm glad you actually brought up Sean Payton. I know I'm shifting a little bit here, but I actually think outside of obviously the MVP race, because it's going to cause the most discussion because it's the MVP race, but the Coach of the Year race is incredibly fascinating for me because I'm looking at it, and this has been hard to figure for some weeks now. There's part of me that sits there and says, okay, a team like the Patriots and Bill Belichick, with a rookie quarterback doing things that necessarily not many rookies do. You know, that's certainly coach of the year worthy. You look at Mike Vrabel and the Titans. I mean, how many of us wrote them off when, you know, they lost Derrick Henry, they lost Julio Jones, and they lost a few games, and you're like, oh, well, that's it for the Titans. All of a sudden, they're in the driver's seat as the number 1 seed right now with Derrick Henry coming back. And you mentioned the Saints. Another, again, if the Saints make the playoffs, all of a sudden I'm looking at it right now and saying Mike Vrabel, and it really could come down to Mike Vrabel and Sean Payton if the Saints make it to the playoffs, because all of a sudden I'm looking at 2 teams that probably far overachieved, and a lot of that due to the coaching. And I know a lot of people want to say, oh, Matt LaFleur. Well, we know how this award is. Like, you don't award this Coach of the Year award to a team that kind of meets expectations. You know, I think when it comes to Green Bay and the media and the circus that surrounds it, and things tend to get, you know, there's inflation happening all over the country. Okay. None more than in Green Bay when it comes to their quarterback and what this team is. Like, I think they're a really good team and potentially the best team in the NFC. But with them, everything's a little bit inflated. It's like, oh, well, Aaron Rodgers was without his top 3 wide receivers. Yeah, but he had 3 of his top 4 pass catchers. You know what I mean? Oh, they've been playing with 4th string offensive linemen. No, they haven't. They've been playing with backups, and they've been a good offensive unit. Oh, Matt LaFleur is doing things no one expected. No, I think everyone expected this team to be at the top of the conference. So to me, I don't necessarily put him in the conversation. I know what he's doing is incredibly impressive, and I'm not just diminishing that. But I think the Coach of the Year award definitely goes to a coach who leads their team beyond expectations. And I think both those teams, not only the Saints, and some of those expectations, let me add, are set within the season. It's not necessarily preseason expectations, because, like, you know, obviously the Titans were expected to be a good team. No one expected them to be the number 1 seed when they lost all their best players. And I think that's the big difference here. And that's why I think guys like Mike Vrabel and Sean Payton, again, pending a victory or getting into the playoffs, are going to be those 2 top guys. Outside of that, I'm not too sure. And I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on that race in general.
Yeah, I think it kind of just it goes to kind of speak how much the narratives really drive these awards. Like you said, I think just the in-season stuff, like the Titans, as far as just how many players they've used, that really stands out to me. And I think the Saints, I mean, the fact that Jameis Winston actually was as good as he was to start the season, and then I think just the fact, like you said, how many quarterbacks they've gone through this year. It's pretty crazy to see that they've still held their head above water. So yeah, I think the toughest thing is for guys like LaFleur. I think it's weird because I kind of heard the conversation a little bit ago where it's kind of hard to necessarily, you know, like you said, give guys awards that are meeting expectations. And I think the thing is for LaFleur, definitely in a tough spot with, you know, how much they've gotten the 1 seed in recent years and obviously not failed to get to the Super Bowl. I think those expectations definitely kind of grow a little bit more stale, so to speak. So guys like that, yeah, I think I understand it a little more now, where, you know, like you said, those expectations, if they're met, it's definitely harder to reward. So I think one name that I kind of have leaned to a little bit, Zach Taylor, just because he, you know, looked like he wasn't ever going to probably stick around at all after these first few years. But I think I would have to probably still lean Vrabel over him, or maybe even Peyton, like you said, if they get in. But Vrabel, I think with everything they've gone through, it's pretty crazy, like you said, to see if they get the 1 seed today.
Yeah, I was going to say Taylor would definitely be a name in consideration. But I don't know how many people tend to look at Cincinnati and look at Burrow and Chase before they look at Taylor. So it's kind of the issue for him. But this week is all about coaching. I mean, Belichick would be considered if the Patriots still had a chance of the 1 seed, but the fact that they've kind of struggled at the end outside of last week where they did everything right, would kind of take him out of that. But coaching is the storyline this week. I think not only for openings, because McFangio just got fired in Denver, but only for the chances for coaches to make a name for themselves. And I'll go back to that Charger Raider game. This guy isn't in Coach of the Year, but if Vegas wins, and I know all the talk about Jim Harbaugh this week, why not take the interim tag off Bisaccia? Because for him to be able to handle all that, we talk about how Derek Carr's handled it. They got how Rich Bisaccia's handled it through all the Gruden stuff and Henry Ruggs and everything like that. If he can guide this team to the playoffs, I mean, how does Mark Davis and that front office and Mike Mayock think, yeah, they can go for the big name, and I'm sure they could probably get one in Vegas in the postseason, but this guy actually led you through so much adversity. Why not bring him back?
I'd say because it's Mark Davis and Mike Mayock. I mean, right there. I mean, well, big name, good chance for a good. We'll go with big name. Look, I'm not the biggest Harbaugh fan and Harbaugh's fan because that applies for both Jim and John, in my opinion. But it's hard for the Raiders to pass up an opportunity to get a guy who has had of the college coaches that have come up and coached in the NFL, he has had some success relative to certainly a lot of the other ones. So it's certainly a good option. But I'm with you too. I mean, I just maybe you look at what you have and go from there. But at the same time, it's the Las Vegas Raiders, and you know what does good? Well, you get a big name coach. They've tried it once already, and trust me, if it wasn't for what happened, John Gruden would still be the coach of this team. Like they were committed to John Gruden for as long as that contract played out. So, all right. So obviously, like I said, I mentioned the playoff races, and actually, let me readjust this. Yeah, there we go. That makes a lot more sense here. Here we go. Kansas City, like I mentioned, is technically the number 1 seed, but because they played yesterday and Tennessee has yet to play. If the Chiefs had won or lost, there would actually be an open race between about 3 teams for that number 1 seed. Actually, 4 teams for that number 1 seed. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that. And as Ricky mentioned, that number 1 seed is off the table for the Patriots. However, as you can see, the AFC East is not. So that is going to be something to watch. Obviously, Buffalo and New England are not playing each other. They are playing, division rivals. So the Patriots would have to beat the Dolphins in Miami. And like Ricky mentioned earlier, as Patriots fans, you're rooting for the Jets to beat the Buffalo Bills. Don't get your hopes up, folks. It's just probably not going to work out well. So this is what you're looking at. You're looking at essentially, you got a lot of movement potential here in the AFC, and that could come from the wild cards. It could come from the division leaders right now. Indianapolis, Los Angeles, the Raiders all tied at 9-7, Patriots at 10-6, Buffalo the same thing. So whoever doesn't win that division and say they lose their game this week, I'm talking about the Bills or the Patriots, they could find themselves, in just an absolute logjam of 10-7 teams if Indianapolis, Chargers, and all them win. So interesting to see how this is going to play out. Over in the NFC, it's not as kind of more cut and dry. You look at it here. The Packers, we know, are the number 1 seed. The Rams and the Buccaneers both have an opportunity to be the number 2 seed. If Los Angeles wins, then they're the number 2 seed. If Tampa loses, or if Tampa wins, they would need the Rams to lose. The Cardinals obviously are in the playoffs. The biggest thing, like we mentioned earlier, is who's going to get that final spot between the 49ers and Saints. And you know what? Are you a team? I don't care what their quarterback situation is. We've seen the Saints play defense. Is there any team in the NFC that wants to play the Saints? Kind of a rhetorical question, but not really, because now I'm like, really, I don't think any of these teams would want to see the Saints team.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot more craziness that can happen against the Saints. Maybe I think you look at some of these other teams. I think you can kind of, I don't want to say boat race them, but kind of pull away more comfortably. Where I think the Saints, you kind of always got to worry about them being in there till the end of it.
What's that defense?
I would say out of the three teams like 6 through 8, I would put the Saints kind of like second on that list. I think you want to play Philly because Philly, to me, you look at their record 9-8, but I think all their wins against teams that are 500 or worse right now. And that's why I was kind of disappointed that the Eagles didn't play it straight last night. I feel like they needed to kind of get a win over a playoff team to kind of get confident that they can actually beat them. But hey, Nick Sirianni can make that choice. Only thing concerns with the Saints is the quarterback. I don't think like if you play a team like let's say the Saints get the 7 and they play the Rams, I don't think Taysom Hill can score enough points to beat Matt Stafford as much as Matt Stafford's going to give it back to you with interceptions. Sean Payton with nothing to lose is a weird and fun thing to watch. I just don't think they could score because you could prep and take Kamara out, and then really, what do you have?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, the frightening part about them is just their defense and how they've handled some of the best teams in the league. You talk about the Bucks the second time they met because a lot of people have kind of forgotten that Tom threw 4 touchdowns and nearly 400 yards against this team in the first meeting. It's still a loss, unfortunately, for them. But even go back to Week 1 against the Packers. Obviously, different offensive unit, but that defense still held them to only 3 points. And you go down the list, they've somehow just played well against really good teams. So that's something where probably maybe Week 1 you don't want to see. It'll be interesting if it turns out that they are the 7th seed and maybe Tampa makes it to the 2nd, because then all of a sudden you got a yet another playoff matchup between the two. I'm with you though. If I'm any of those top teams, I want to see the Eagles. It's a nice soft landing spot for a wild card matchup. If you're one of those two, if you're either the Rams or the Buccaneers, one of the 2 or 3 seeds. So it's going to be interesting to see. So anyways, it's Week 18, which means we still have some prop bets to do. And I'm going to pull these up right now because we're going to get through those and we're going to make our picks for the final regular season game of the year. And let's see, let's pull this up here. Oh, no, that's not. Well, that's our schedule. We're going to be doing that here in a little bit. But we're going to get all the way up here to the top. And voila, the Rams, surprisingly, somehow, are expecting Cam Akers back and to make his season debut today, which is pretty incredible and good thing for the Rams, who, like one of you guys mentioned earlier, are all in. So they're going to need as much help as they can get through this NFC playoff gauntlet and then, of course, make it to the Super Bowl. In his debut, over under 55.5 yards in a pretty important matchup against the 49ers.
I think this is more of a get your feet wet kind of game for Akers. I think if you're the Rams and you want to win this game and get that number 2 seed, you're going to feed Tony Michel early and often. Michel's been great over the last 4 or 5 weeks for this Rams team. So just off that, I think it's just more of a trial run for him. Maybe get limited touches. I'll go under.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think this is kind of one of those games, too. I could see the Matthew Stafford having to air it out quite a bit as well. So I'm not sure exactly how many carries Akers will get in his first game. So I'll go under.
All right. Next, Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, we're mentioning he's playing. A lot of these starters are playing. Number 1 seed locked up. Yeah, I think, again, he's vying for that MVP award, and you know what? That's his prerogative to go out there and play and fight for it. 2.5 touchdowns total, over under that amount against the Detroit Lions.
I'm going to go slightly under. I'm going to go 2 because I think Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon can get a touchdown in the first half because, actually, I just said that. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to play a half and a series into the third quarter and then come out of the game. I don't think LaFleur is going to risk playing him the entire day. I think they want to at least get some good vibes going into the postseason with the bye week next week, but I don't think he finishes this game. If he finishes the game, I would definitely go over, but considering I'm thinking only one half of football, I'll go under.
I'm going to go over here just because I think there'll be a lot of opportunities kind of for him to kind of hit on some big plays against this Lions team who gave up 51 points last week to Seattle. So I kind of expect some quick scoring, some quick drives. And even if he does play a half, I think Aaron will go over here.
Yeah, I got to agree with Braden just because, well, hey, it's the NFC North. So this is where he really gets his play worth. We look across the season and his biggest statistical outputs have come against his divisional rivals, one of which being the Lions. So 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I kind of see that. And I like I said, I think the motivation is there for him to I'm not going to say stat pad, but enhance his stats. So, I think there's going to be a concerted effort to get over to like 3 touchdowns. I think 3 is the key. Anything over that is gravy for him. But so I'll take the over. Baltimore Steelers, Mark Andrews, over under 6.5 catches.
Gonna go with the over. Mark Andrews has been the number 1 target for Tyler Huntley. Still no Lamar Jackson today. really, what else is that Ravens offense besides Andrews and Rashad Bateman? I think had a decent game last week against the Rams. Pittsburgh's defense, I think you're going to be able to at least do short passes, not long passes, especially TJ Watt going for the sack record, which I think is legitimate because Watt's only played in like 10 games anyway. But
not to mention, let's not talk about how that sack record, quote unquote, was achieved.
True.
Back in the day.
Well, low scoring game, but I think Andrews it's over on the catches.
This is a tough one for me because Pittsburgh has been a lot better over the middle of the field compared to the outside defensively. But like Ricky said, he's still the go-to guy, especially for Tyler Huntley, who's still kind of trying to navigate new waters. So very, very close, but I think he goes over.
All right, next. Elijah Moore, Stephon Diggs. Who scores first week 18? Or will neither of them score?
I don't want to make this prop bet weird, but is Elijah Moore? I don't think Elijah Moore's playing today.
Did he get it? Did he get marked? Well, then there you go. Is it Stephon Diggs or no one? Sometimes it's hard. You grab some of these and the latest news isn't quite updated.
But we can change it this way. Looking at this game, I mean, the Bills are not that good of a team in cold weather, which is weird because you're thinking Buffalo, they're built for cold weather. And look at that Falcon game last week. They didn't really play great for about a half into the third quarter. It's supposed to be 20-mile-an-hour winds and 30-degree weather. So I would say Diggs should have a good game because the Jets secondary isn't great, although the Jets put up a good effort last week. I would put more maybe in like a Devin Singletary this week. Maybe would score before Stephon Diggs if we want to go Bills on Bills here.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, we'll adjust it there. So what do you think, Braden?
Yeah, I'm going to go neither one will score. I kind of expect this to maybe be, I don't want to say a safe game, but I think more of a controlled game from Buffalo, kind of what we saw last week from Josh Allen, not necessarily forcing the issue, but allowing his physical toughness and running to kind of take over. So I'm going to say neither one here. I think it'll be more Josh Allen legs game today.
Next, Justin Herbert versus Derek Carr. More passing yards in Week 18. Who do you got, Ricky?
I'm going to go Herbert. Derek Carr was held to less than 200 yards in the first matchup with these two teams. I think the Chargers defense is a little more talented than the Raiders defense, and Herbert's going to need to air the ball out in this game, preferably to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I don't think Vegas is secondary, who had, I think, another corner arrested earlier this week. Not exactly in the best position. So I'll say Herbert over Carr.
I got to agree. I think there's a bigger play potential here with some missed tackles, maybe on the back end from this Raiders secondary. It might be closer than some people expect, but I still got to go with Herbert.
All right. Next, I think there's a next. Yes, that's right. Devonte Smith, Jalen Waddle. Who gets more yards?
I'll go Waddle. I think Waddle has to break, was it 41 that Smith had last night? And I look at that Patriots secondary. I actually think Devontae Parker have a bigger game than Waddle today because with no who's out for the Patriots? Miles Bryant has COVID. So he's out. So you're really relying on the likes of Joejuan Williams and Sean Wade. And there's just not a lot there in that Patriots secondary to write home about outside of maybe Jalen Mills, who's played better. I think it's more of a Parker game, but I think Waddle can get over 40.
Yeah, I got to go with Waddle as well. Just, his ability to make people miss and his spatial awareness after the catch is almost second to none right now for younger receivers. And he only needs 3 catches today to break Antoine Bolden's rookie record. So I got to think he's going to get quite a bit of touches as well. So I got to go with Waddle.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Oh, no, apparently not. There we go. Total points, Steelers, Ravens, over, under 41.5. That seems like a big number, but we'll see. What do you guys think?
We'll go with the under. People talk about how this has been Roethlisberger's last game and there's going to be a boost for the Steelers. That was supposed to be Monday and Ben threw for about 120 yards or something like that.
On like 500 attempts.
Deontay Johnson got activated off the COVID list, but he was on the COVID list earlier this week. So how effective can he be? The Ravens only tended to struggle, especially red zone scoring. They don't have that rushing offense you're used to. This first matchup, I believe, was 20-19. I could see something similar, if not lower. So both these teams, I think they're just worn out just from all the injuries and bodies they've had to use. So in a smash mouth game like this to end the year, I'll take the under.
Yeah, I got to agree. I think this could be more of a Justin Tucker kind of game. See how many points are opportunities he has to kick over touchdowns alone. I think this is going to be a game that could have a lot of turnovers as well. So got to go with the under.
All right. I think we have one more. Nope, we don't. It's pick time. That's right. I like to do our picks here. So obviously this is the last Sunday we're going to do a nice big rundown like this. In the future, it's just going to be a handful of games because, hey, it's just about playoff time. So let's get into it. We have Cincinnati at Cleveland kicking off the day, or at least by virtue of how this list is set up. This is the matchup that's going to kick off our list and our predictions. Battle of backups here. I don't think Joe Burrow's not playing. Baker Mayfield's not playing. I still like Cincinnati to win this game. I just think Cleveland is kind of lost at this point, and really I don't think there's too much positives going to come out of this. So give me the Bengals on the road.
Joe Mixon's not playing either for Cincinnati. So when you're without your starting quarterback, without your starting running back, and they've had a few COVID guys too this week. I know it's Cleveland. I know Baker Mayfield, who's out, is busy trolling Cleveland reporters because I don't know what he's thinking right now. But it's Case Keenum. The Browns could at least have some success offensively. I don't think Cincinnati really I don't know how much even Chase should play or will play, even though they have Higgins and Boyd. I'll just say Cleveland because I don't really know what incentive Cincinnati really has today.
Yeah, I'm right there with Ricky. I think Case Keenum honestly is probably a lot better option than Baker Mayfield at this point. So I think he's going to kind of have a lot of kind of incentive and motivation to go out there and prove himself. Like Ricky said, a lot of guys probably not going to play full game for Cincinnati today. I still think they could make it close, but I kind of trust Cleveland to still fight hard and kind of finish strong under Stefanski without Baker today.
Next, we have Green Bay heading to Detroit. I would love to pick against the Packers right now, but I'm not foolish. I'm not going to. The Packers are going to win this game because, well, it's the Detroit Lions, and I would love to be wrong. So I guess give me the Packers.
Jared Goff is back for the Lions today, so that does kind of help any upset chances the Lions might have. But even in one half of football, Aaron Rodgers should do enough to win this game. And I think Jordan Love, if he gets in, could do at least something more than he did the first time he played against Kansas City. Packers get the win.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to this. The fact that Rodgers is playing alone, I think, obviously helps their case even more. But even if he wasn't playing, I think this Packers defense still one of the toughest to score touchdowns on. We saw that last week for the Vikings. So I got to go Packers here.
Next, we have the Bears heading to Minnesota. Andy Dalton starting for Chicago. Do we know Kirk Cousins in or out? I've completely missed that and haven't seen his status update. But
I believe he's in. Yes.
He's in.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wasn't quite sure. Either way, I'm actually taking the Bears for. I have no reason why. I'm looking at it like, look, this Minnesota team is. You know, they're the definition, I think, of mediocre. They have good days, they have bad, they have good performance, they have bad. I don't know. For some reason, my gut's telling me Chicago's going to win this game in a pretty close, awkward, probably sloppy game. So give me the Bears.
This is a Bears team that ironically has fought hard for Matt Nagy, even though Matt Nagy's job has been done since like Thanksgiving. They beat Seattle in the snow when they didn't need to. They beat the Giants, which is it's not hard to do, but I mean, they dominated the Giants the way that I think people were kind of maybe somewhat surprised. I thought about going the Bears, Ian, but I'll go the Vikings. And the only reason I am is if there is some doubt if Mike Zimmer gets brought back, any doubt would be erased if they lost this game. So with Zimmer maybe fighting for his job, I'll go Minnesota, but I can see why Chicago could win today.
I'm going to go Minnesota. I think the biggest difference for me is the quarterback situation. I don't really think Andy Dalton's going to be able to kind of keep up with Cousins, who's, quietly when he's been on the field had a decent season. But yeah, I think it'll be close. Minnesota, if it is Zimmer's last game, I wouldn't really be opposed to a change if I were a Vikings fan. I think this team's kind of plateaued a bit. Think they kind of have run this course of their current regime. So maybe the last game for both coaches in this one. If it is, it'll be probably a wild finish.
Next, Washington, the last time as the football team, or maybe not. I'm kind of hoping for the reveal that they're going to keep the name as the football team. That's kind of what I'm rooting for. But this is potentially the last time we see them as the Washington football team heading to face the New York Giants. Again, kind of like I'll take the Giants because they're at home, and I think that would make for a pretty fine way to end the season is watching the Giants somehow win this game. So give me the Giants.
A lot of weird back and forth this week between these two teams. Joe Judge, in his 11-minute post-game rant, kind of took a shot at Washington for infighting on the sideline a few weeks ago. Ron Rivera saying, hey, go look at your own team. This is Jake Fromm at quarterback. That Washington defensive line is ready to tee off. And I'm sorry, the football team should roll in this game, and Joe Judge should get a pink slip out the door because the Giants have been an absolute embarrassment this year.
Yeah, I think Washington will win big here. And also for Taylor Heinicke, it'll be interesting to see how he handles this game. Maybe his last shot, possibly at being the starter. I think he's definitely a serviceable guy, but not the franchise that Washington is seeking. So be interesting to see how he goes out there today with maybe one last big chance to kind of stake his claim. But yeah, I don't think this will be close. I got Washington.
Next, Indianapolis fighting for playoff positioning heads to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. I got the Colts. Regardless of what version of Carson Wentz we get this week, I do think this is a pretty not easy win, but I think this is as near guarantee win for the Colts as you can get. So give me Indianapolis.
Jonathan Taylor, I think, needs 266 yards for 2,000. I don't think he'll get it, but he might get close today. And the fact that you would normally think, hey, Jacksonville's played well against the Colts at home before. It's not impossible. Go watch Jacksonville last week and tell me it's not impossible. It was a train wreck. They have their fans dressing up as clowns today because of how embarrassing it is. And I'll pick the Colts, but on the Jaguars side, please don't hire Bill O'Brien. Hire anybody but Bill O'Brien. He's a play caller. He's not a head coach. Don't screw this up.
Yeah, like Ricky mentioned, I mean, Jacksonville has been good lately at home against Indianapolis, but this is a different kind of Indianapolis squad, I think, based off what they've built year after year. And Jonathan Taylor really hasn't been in those games to kind of run all over Jacksonville single-handedly. So I'd love to see a Jags win just for the chaos in the AFC playoff picture, but I don't think it'll be close and the Colts get it done.
All right. Excuse me. Next, we have Pittsburgh heading to Baltimore. And look, I actually think Baltimore has a better shot with Tyler Huntley under center than Lamar Jackson. Even, when he was in there, he hasn't necessarily had the best season and certainly has struggled. Although I think Pittsburgh wins this one. I don't have a logical, I can't, explain it to you logically why I feel this way, but I just, much like we saw last week, it was like, to what Ricky said, we expected a big last hurrah for Ben Roethlisberger. And it was kind of a dud. Like I said, 42 yards on, I said 500 attempts. I wasn't too far off. It was like 40 something. But the point being was that was the most work I've ever seen someone achieve, do to get 140 some odd yards. I think the defense kind of shows up today. I'm not looking at this as a Ben Roethlisberger show out game. I do think that TJ Watt and this defense is going to have a pretty good time against this Baltimore Ravens offense. And I think it's actually going to lead to a win on the road. So give me Pittsburgh in this one.
Low scoring game, smash mouth football. And with Pittsburgh coming off a short week, Ben throwing so much 6 days ago, how much really does that arm have left? And I know the Ravens are on a massive losing streak, but you've seen good things with Tyler Huntley. Remember, this is a Raven team that had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. And you could argue going for two, not going for two. But the Ravens had control for most of that game. I think it's something similar today. I'll take Baltimore at home.
Kind of like Ian, I don't really have a great reason in this game other than I think the team's going to continue to play hard for Ben Roethlisberger. What's pretty crazy is if Cleveland wins today and Pittsburgh wins, Baltimore could technically get last in this division and have a last place schedule next year, which is pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of good reasoning. I just think right now Pittsburgh defensively better than Baltimore, so I think they'll kind of find a way to hold Baltimore out of the end zone just enough to win it.
Next, Tennessee heads to Houston. No Derrick Henry today, but it doesn't matter. Tennessee, Titans win this one. Lock up the number 1 seed. That's all I got.
You got to go with the Titans. Remember, it was a ugly, mud-filled field in Tennessee a few weeks ago when Houston forced 4 turnovers. and still only won by like 9 points. I was like, as I checked, there's no rain in Houston, so Tennessee should be fine today.
Yep, Tennessee, no question about it. It's basically their playoff game today before a bye week. So I don't think it'll be too much problems there. I got the Titans.
All right, next, New Orleans heads to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. And as much as we've been singing the praises of the Saints and potential Coach of the Year candidacy of Sean Payton, I think Atlanta wins this game. Atlanta's a team that they're not great. They're not terrible. They're a team. They're middle of the pack. They have some talent on offense. They have abilities to put some points up on the board. And I think again, when it comes down to it, the Saints defense has to play perfect, and they're capable of doing that and putting on quite a show. I just don't think Atlanta's a team that they can play up to or play like they, you know what I mean? They play up to their competition. Like if they're playing the Bucks, they're playing the Packers, they're going to play up to it. I don't think Atlanta offers that type of motivation for the Saints team. So I think ultimately this is just going to be a kind of a sloppy game, but I think Atlanta's going to do enough on offense to win it. So give me the Falcons at home.
Falcons with a chance to sweep the Saints, which is very uncommon and really surprising. And again, Atlanta's been one of those weird teams that they're good. They're not good, but they're not bad, which is kind of a weird way to be in Arthur Smith's first year. I'm going to go the Saints just because in a win to stay in kind of game, you tend to trust Sean Payton. And Kyle Pitts is there for Atlanta, and he's going for the rookie, I think the rookie tight end yards record. But he's also banged up coming in, and there's nothing really else in that Falcons offense to write home about. And that Saint pass rush can at least make Matt Ryan's life a little bit miserable in the pocket. New Orleans wins a low-scoring, ugly defensive game, but they keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, New Orleans as well for me. I think just the fact that you do kind of have New Orleans, the fact that they could be swept today, I think that's enough motivation in a game against their biggest rivals. So regardless of what San Francisco does or not, I think that's going to be a motivation enough for them. So I got the Saints.
All right, next we have. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I kind of felt that sneeze coming along. Thank God for this mute button, though. All right, next we have the Jets heading to Buffalo. And look, I have no other reason for picking the New York Jets other than I'm just hoping that they somehow pull it out and win this game. And I'm going to put my reputation on the line. What little of a reputation I have, I'm going to put it on the line. I'm going to pick the Jets to win this game in hopes that New England can beat Miami and take that AFC East division.
I hope you're right, Ian. I tried to do it. I can't do it. I was even thinking of pulling off a Jet chant, and I might do that before the game, but I don't think Berrios is out. The Jets really have nothing there besides Jamison Crowder and Michael Carter, although to their credit, they've been very competitive over the last month. I don't think the Bills blow them out. Buffalo, I don't think is really capable of blowing anybody out, and that weather, I think, is going to make things a little bit tougher to do that. Remember, the first matchup, Mike White was the quarterback, not Zach Wilson, and Wilson's showing some good things. I just think Josh Allen's too much. I think the Bills, knowing with all that to play for, they might press knowing they have so much to play for. But I don't think the Jets have enough talent on the field to pull off this upset.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Bills as well. I do think the Jets will cover just because I think Zach Wilson has been making a lot of good decisions lately, starting to get through his progressions a little quicker. But in the end, the game in Buffalo, and it's late season weather game possibly up there as well. So I just think Buffalo's built so well for this type of game to kind of end the season at home. Very physical team, downhill team. So got to go with the Bills.
All right, next we have San Francisco heading to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. I like the San Francisco upset here. Again, I mean, a lot of these games I'm just kind of picking based on what my gut says, and maybe that speaks more about what I ate yesterday than opposed to what actually I feel like is going to happen here. But San Francisco, I think, is more to play for, obviously, than Los Angeles, and not that Los Angeles doesn't have anything to play for. I just think San Francisco is going to come into this game and kind of catch them off guard a little bit. I think they're due for a big win this season. And look, they've had Los Angeles's number under Kyle Shanahan, so we'll see if that repeats. So give me San Francisco in this one.
Kind of odd to realize Kyle Shanahan has Sean McVay's number. It's really surprising considering that you would think McVay would have it over Shanahan, considering Shanahan's history with play calling as offensive coordinator in Atlanta, as we all know. But I'm going to go the Niners, too. I said to myself this week, if Lance was the quarterback, I'd go the Rams because it's tough to trust a rookie in a win-you're-in scenario. Garoppolo is going to try to play, and I think at least it gives the Niners some options offensively. And Matthew Stafford, like I said earlier, having trouble taking care of the football the last couple of weeks. This is the Niner defense that loves taking the ball away. So since there's a veteran under center that can kind of keep things composed and there's no variable for a off night, I'll go San Francisco barely on the road to get into the playoffs.
I'm going to go with the Rams. The history of Shanahan McVay definitely makes it tough, but personally, I don't really buy a lot of the San Francisco team right now going into the playoffs. If they make it, I just don't know how much of a threat they really pose. But even if Stafford struggles today, I think this is a Rams defense that's starting to get more and more hot at the right time. Aaron Donald, of course, up front, but the back seven's doing a really good job of limiting explosive plays. So got to go with the Rams in a tight one at home.
All right, next we have New England heading to Miami. The Patriots obviously still in the hunt for the AFC East title, so I'm going to take the Patriots in this one. I think Miami's nice run obviously came to an end last week. And look, who are you going to take, Mac Jones or Tua? And until I'm convinced that Tua can actually throw beyond the sticks consistently, I'm going to take the better team in this situation and the better quarterback. So give me the Patriots.
January in South Beach usually is never kind to the Patriots. They've had a history of losing these kind of last week games against the Dolphins as well. The last couple of years this has happened. I'm going to go New England, though, just because I think this is a game to try to get Mac Jones some more confidence building off of last week. And I think when you look back to week one when these two played, the Patriots really should have won that game. Damian Harris fumbled at the goal line. I think he's going to have a huge game today. When you look at his season, very underrated considering how good of a year he's had. I think about almost 15 touchdowns and has a chance to go over 1,000 yards today. So I think New England's ground game gets it done, but I'd like to see Mac Jones get a little bit more confidence going to that wild card game, which they're going to need him to come from behind to win. It's going to be ugly, but I like New England to squeak out one on the road.
I'm going to go New England as well. I think this is it's such a tough game to kind of judge, I think, from the Patriots offense perspective, but I think we know what the Dolphins offense is at this point. Don't want to say some guys are checked out, but I just think there's so many guys that are ready to kind of see what 2022 is going to bring. Of course, Will Fuller, they brought in, only played about a handful of games. We'll see what Devonte Parker's situation looks like. Hard to say what this Dolphins offense is going to look like after the year, and I just don't know if it's going to lead to much success today.
Next, we have Arizona hosting Seattle. There hasn't been much from Arizona the last couple months that has given me any sort of confidence that this team is going to go that far in the playoffs or anything like that. But I do think they win this game because I think they're just better than Seattle. Seattle, obviously, their season is over. Questions about their future are going to be ongoing. But in this situation, I do think Arizona locks it up and gets the victory. So give me the Cardinals.
Got to give the Cardinals a lot of credit going into Dallas, getting a win last week when I think the whole world was like, this team is not checked out, but this team is just not capable of winning these big games. That's a big game for them, and they could play them next week in the playoffs if things break out a certain way. I like Arizona today. If James Conner plays, he's going to run roughshod in the Seattle defense. And the Seahawks really I know it's Russell Wilson, maybe even Pete Carroll's last game, but the Cardinals just have too much talent. They should win at home.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson can maybe keep this game close here and there, but ultimately you're facing a Seahawks defense that is probably one of the worst, I think, roster-wise, top to bottom, all three levels of the defense. So I think Kyler Murray should have a pretty easy day, so to speak. Cardinals win it with a lot of points on the scoreboard.
Next, we have Tampa hosting Carolina. Obviously, we talked about the Bucks earlier. Still vying for that second seed in the conference. But most importantly, folks, this is the icing on the cake game for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, and specifically for Brady himself, as with all that Antonio Brown drama, and we haven't even mentioned him today, and surprisingly we haven't. In the backdrop, everything that's going on, Tom wraps up his MVP campaign by throwing, and here's the bold prediction, folks. At least 489 yards to break the single season passing record set by Peyton Manning. Obviously, that's going to be a stretch against a pretty good Carolina Panthers defense, but they are without Stephon Gilmore and some other pieces in that secondary. And whether or not he actually wants to do that is a big factor, because to throw for almost 500 yards, you really want to have to do that. You're going to have to forcefully make that happen. I'm not quite sure if that's going to happen, but I would love to see it, because that would make his case even stronger. Either way, I think this Tampa Bay team wins pretty comfortably at home against the Panthers. And like I said, hopefully you see a nice big performance from Brady, and maybe he sets a record or two. So.
Yeah, Matt Rule's coming back, but I don't think any of the Panthers quarterbacks should be coming back, because that offense is absolutely awful. The Tampa Bay Bucks held them to 6 points a couple of weeks ago. I could see something similar here. I think it's definitely we talked about audition games for the Bucks a couple weeks ago. This is another audition game, because now they don't have that, don't have Antonio Brown in the mix, and oh boy. But I'm going to go with a bold prediction here on Tampa today, not to Tom Brady. Cyril Grayson's going to lead the team in receiving yards today. Grayson has 81 yards in each of the last 2 games, and I think I get the sense, Ian, he's going to be this year's version of Scotty Miller, that guy that Tom Brady relies upon to get some big catches in the postseason. So another guy that Tom could make a lot of money. So Cyril Grayson has a big one today in the Bucks role.
Yeah, I think the stat I saw so far, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians together, they've beat the Panthers by an average of 21 points so far since they've been together in Tampa. So don't expect this one to be close. The Panthers, I believe, will be locked into a top 6 pick if they lose this game. So it may be actually a win today for the Panthers. If they lose, Bucks should win pretty big.
And last but very not least, the final game of the 2021 NFL regular season, Sunday Night Football, the Vegas Raiders hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. I like the Chargers on the road here. I think this is going to be a high scoring game between the two quarterbacks. And I think we all agree that Herbert's probably going to throw a little bit more, just because, they have a little bit more to work with. But I like the Chargers in this one. And I think it's going to be quite a fun game to end the season.
I still badly want to go Vegas just for the story, just getting to the postseason. They're going to have the Madden family lighting the torch before the game tonight, so that this crowd's going to be hot. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. Biggest game in the young history of that new stadium. There's just too much talent on the Chargers side. As much as Brandon Staley could go for it on 4th down a bunch of times and screw it up, I think that they find a way to barely win one on the road. I'm still hoping for the tie, but if they play it straight and it's winning, you're in, I'll take the Chargers.
Yeah, this one's very, very tough. I think just because the Raiders, like Ricky said earlier, I don't know what to expect from them week to week. And especially when you take into account the Chargers defense, not had a lot of resistance this year. Their pass rush has pretty much been non-existent most of the season. So Derek Carr been a very good deep ball passer most of the season, one of the better ones in the league. So I think he's going to be able to kind of keep them close, but I think it could be a late Justin Herbert touchdown. Puts Chargers over the top, and they get into the playoffs in the AFC.
Well, there you have it, folks. The last prediction rundown of the regular season. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will be back next week. We'll kind of figure out what the schedule is going to be like when it comes to playoff football and what we're going to do to cover it and everything like that. But we do appreciate you hanging in there, hanging out with us every Sunday morning, and, of course, letting us spout nonsense that, we think we're smart, but at the end of the day, we just look at the tape and we realize maybe we're not as smart as we figured, but we appreciate you guys hanging in there nonetheless, because we enjoy doing this. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy the last Sunday of the NFL season, regular season, and be safe, be happy, be warm if you're up in the Northeast, and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.